Okay, we're ready.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Bay Harbor Islands Town Manager Candidate Citizens Panel. By way of introduction, my name is Colin Benziger, and I'm the owner and principal of Colin Benziger and Associates. The firm has a long-standing relationship really with Bay Harbor. We did the search back in 2003 that brought Greg Tyndall to the island, and then in 2007, Ron Wasson. This year, we were hired again to find the next town manager. After searching diligently, we had 67 applicants. We reduced that field to about a dozen, and the council further reduced that field to the 3 outstanding people you have here tonight. Prior to this evening, we solicited questions from the public, and we have 22 questions. Some background noise. I don't know what's going on. Anyway, we have 22 questions submitted by 3 citizens. And what I'd like to do is to ask some of those questions from each of the 3 people that asked. But I'd also like to include some from the audience if there's anyone who wants to submit one through the Q&A box on the webinar. So if you have one, please submit it and I'll see if I can work it in. We do have until 9 o'clock. If we're still on at 9 o'clock, then I'm going to have to close this down so that the candidates can get some rest before their interviews with the council members tomorrow. I will rotate the sequence in which I ask the questions so that each candidate gets to be first for some of the questions, second for some, and third for some. I'd like to begin by introducing the 3 candidates. I'm going to do it in alphabetical order. First is Kathy Brooks, formerly with Miami-Dade County in the city of Miami Beach. And Ms. Cheng, if you'd like to run her video, we'll let Kathy introduce herself and then give her an opportunity just to add a few words.
Thank you. My name is Kathy Brooks, and I would love to be there to meet you face-to-face. I'm grateful for the opportunity to come connect with you, even in this limited format. I'd like to give you a sense of my background, both personally and professionally. I am a South Florida local, having lived in Miami-Dade County for 40 years. I was born in Jamaica and moved to South Florida after moving to Toronto, Canada as a teenager. I attended the University of Man to study urban geography, which is an analytical form of urban planning. I quickly fell in love with South Florida and got sand in my shoes. I met my husband, who is from El Salvador, while working in Miami-Dade County. Y yo puedo conversar en español también. I'm lucky to have all 3 adult children living very close by. I live just 15 minutes from Bay Harbor Island. I've had the chance to enjoy stores and restaurants and have gotten to know some business leaders and residents of the community. Professionally, I have over 30 years of local government experience in South Florida, most recently in the city of Miami Beach, where I served as interim city manager and as assistant city manager for 7 years. I have a strong reputation for being ethical, analytical, and results-oriented. But more importantly, I listen and I'm open in my decision-making process. I have extensive experience in finance, grants, resiliency, public safety, economic development and redevelopment, transportation, and community service for the youth and the young. I actually was recently in the Bahamas where I went through Hurricane Isaias, my 6th hurricane. Fortunately, it was only a Cat 1. Since we have experience in South Florida, that meant only vegetation damage and minor leaks. I have long-standing working relationships with neighboring cities, with the county, and with the public school system. And I've effectively utilized those relationships to further prioritize where I work. It helps to know who to call. As far as my management style, I prefer a strategic management approach, guided by the vision and goals set forth by the Council, incorporated into results-oriented action plans for staff. Transparency matters. There are often a variety of perspectives on a council and in the community. That's why it is so important to develop consensus to ensure that elected officials, community members, and town staff are all working in unison. I place a high value on community engagement, having worked extensively with residents and businesses in the past, including community meetings, but also meeting with residents and business owners one-on-one at their home or place of business to better understand their particular concerns. While I embrace leadership and I'm very much my own person, my focus will be on addressing council priorities and community concerns. I am loyal to the mission of the entity that I lead. In my 3-decade-long career, I've worked primarily with 2 employers. I don't bounce around. Within those organizations, though, I took on several very different roles and succeeded in each one, which very few in government. I don't give up, and I am committed to providing expert leadership and is given the chance to serve you. I hope that we will meet in person, and I would love to work with the Bay Harbor Islands community. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything, or shall we just proceed to Mr. Garside?
As you wish, Colin. Sorry, the quality, something seemed to have been lost in the transmission, so I hope everyone had a chance to hear what I had to say. But yeah, just mainly, would love the chance to interact with the Bay Harbor Islands community.
Very good. Mr. Garside. Mr. Garside is currently the town manager, city manager in Poland, Maine. He's been there, I believe, for about 3 years, and we'll let him introduce himself through his video.
Hello, everybody. My name is Matt Garside, and I hope to be your next town manager. I'm speaking to you from Poland, Maine, where I'm currently town manager. Like Bay Harbor Islands, Poland has about 6,000 year-round residents. Our population doubles in size in the summer months as our summer residents, tourists, and campers come to town. I grew up in southeast Massachusetts in a town called Norwell. I did the usual things a young man would do: sports, paper route, Eagle Scout, part-time jobs. After high school, I attended Massachusetts Maritime Academy. My dad instilled in me a lifelong love of the sea, which turned into a career in the United States Navy. During my Navy career, I served on frigates, destroyers, and worked in the security and logistics areas. Along the way, I was a fellow of this security studies program at MIT and earned a master's in public administration from the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University. While in the Navy, I was fortunate to live in a number of wonderful overseas locations: Japan, Guam, and Singapore. My last job in the Navy was chief of staff for an organization based in Singapore that took care of all Navy logistics at sea and ashore, from the International Date Line to the Persian Gulf. I retired from the Navy as a captain. Following my Navy career, I worked in the oil and gas industry. I was chief executive officer and board director for a small firm in Singapore that operated 2 seismic research vessels. I then took a break to take care of my elderly parents before ending up in Poland as town manager. So now that you know a little bit more about me, why would you want me to be your next town manager? First and foremost would be my integrity, character, and honesty. Those aren't just words, but values that I've lived my life by in the United States Navy, commercial practice, and now in municipal government. I've always found that being truthful, transparent, and honest is doing the right thing, even when it's not popular to do the right thing, is the best way to conduct oneself professionally and personally. I listen to residents' concerns. I like questions and I like answering them. Providing answers has always helped me understand an issue better and demonstrates to folks that their municipal government hears them and is responsive. I make it a point to establish a good working relationship with all boards and committees. Folks that volunteer their time have a demonstrated desire to help. Sometimes, though, they need assistance to pull the levers of the municipal bureaucracy and get things done. That is where I feel I should help. I follow the rules. Strict adherence to reporting requirements, particularly in the finance area, keeps the town moving forward with confidence. And while I will make decisions to further the town's interests on my own, I fully recognize the value of attaining consensus for any large project or major change. Finally, I believe that a constant of any good organization is treating people with dignity and respect. I believe I would be a good fit and an effective town manager for Bay Harbor Islands. I have the integrity and skill set you're looking for. I'm approachable, able to work through crises, and most importantly, I want the job. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you soon as your next town manager.
Very good. Mr. Garside, would you like to add anything?
Not right now, Colin. I think it'd be nice to get to the questions.
Fair enough. Our final candidate for tonight's forum is Maria Lasday. Ms. Lasday is currently the town manager, city manager of Bannockburn, Illinois. And I'll let, she's been there about 12 years, I believe, and I'll let her introduce herself through the video.
Hello, my name is Maria Lasday. I am honored to be considered for the town manager position at such a special community. My path to being a manager is a little different than most managers. Following my graduations from Pomona College and UCLA School of Law, I started my career as an attorney in Chicago, Illinois. I practiced municipal, real estate, and corporate law. In 2006, I changed careers. Upon a request by my mayor in Highwood, Illinois, I decided to become a city administrator. In Highwood, I managed a very diverse community. The residents were from various socioeconomic backgrounds and ethnicity. In 2008, I accepted a manager position at the village of Bannockburn. Bannockburn is a wealthy community with retail, office, college, and residential districts. It's located in the northern suburbs of Chicago. For the last 12 and a half years, I've been very busy securing grants, replacing Bannockburn's infrastructure systems, solving stormwater management problems, revitalizing the retail districts, and working with property owners to improve their properties in the residential and office districts. I also have been overseeing many community activities and events. In Bannockburn, I facilitated improvement of internal controls, hiring standards, succession plans, and policies within each of the departments. With regard to the finance department, I am proud to say that I was able to achieve and maintain a Standard & Poor's AAA rating for Bannockburn and maintain at least 1 year of reserves, as well as achieve the highest awards for Bannockburn's budget. I also help facilitate the updating of the village's comprehensive plan, strategic plan, and 5-year capital improvement plan. I've been very fortunate to be surrounded by a great team in Bannockburn to help me execute the village's policies and goals. At various times, there have been staffing changes. During the last 12 years, I had to hire numerous personnel. For example, I had to replace various department heads, such as the police chief and finance director. Although I've worked in Illinois as a manager for the last 14 years, I'm very familiar with the weather-related issues in Florida. I've been a Florida homeowner for the last 11 years. A few years ago, my home in Bonita Springs took a direct hit when Hurricane Irma came through our state. Although I incurred significant property damage, various parts of the community had even more devastating losses. I attended the FEMA meeting to see if I could help, as I have several National Incident Management System certifications. When I first heard of the town manager position open in Bay Harbor Islands, I came by to see the community. I loved seeing so many residents walking the highly ranked school, the community center, the police at various corners doing community policing, and the uniqueness of the community. I noticed right away how special Bay Harbor Islands is. For the last few months, I've been trying to educate myself regarding Bay Harbor Island's current and upcoming challenges. Hiring a new police chief will be a top immediate priority. As I've led the process for a new police chief twice in Bannockburn, I'm confident that I would be able to successfully hire a new chief that would be able to further the goals of the community. One of the other challenges that will need immediate attention includes the weather. I would want to assess all emergency procedures in the event of a hurricane or heavy rains, and determine what preventive measures could be done to facilitate stormwater management. In Bannockburn, when I first started my position, the community experienced severe flooding after heavy rains. Due to many stormwater management improvements and preventive measures after heavy rains, the water now quickly recedes in Bannockburn. Such progress in the village enabled Bannockburn to achieve the county's Community of the Year Award in 2009 for stormwater management. Although there are numerous other challenges, I would like to highlight one more. The next town manager will have to contend with all issues related to COVID-19 and assess the possible revenue shortfall as a result of the virus. I am up for the task as I've had to navigate such issues in my current position. I'm very goal-driven. I thrive on knowing the goals of the community and the policies being set by the council. Being Bay Harbor Island's town manager would be a wonderful opportunity to help further and achieve the goals of the community and to meet the challenges. On a personal level, when I'm not working, I enjoy spending time with my family, playing tennis, taking long walks, playing Scrabble, and when I'm able to, I enjoy taking cruises. It would truly be an honor to help serve the residents of Bay Harbor Islands as your town manager. Thank you for your consideration.
Okay, would you like to add anything, Ms. Lasday?
No, I'm just excited to be part of the process and be part of this evening's webinar. Thank you.
Very good. Okay, well, I'm going to start asking the questions now, and I will be timing your responses. So if you go over 2 minutes, I'm going to probably give you a sign like this, and I will ask you to finish up your answer because we do have quite a few to go through. The first question I'm going to direct to Ms. Lasday, and then we'll go to Mr. Garside and then Ms. Brooks. And that is, as a city manager, what is your management style?
I'm very collaborative. I like getting input from staff and from the city council and from residents. I am very much a team player. I love to communicate. I'm very goal driven, so I like to have my team know what the goals are of the city council and of the community. And that's part of the reason why I like to do strategic planning with the council and with the residents, so that the staff always knows what we need to have accomplished.
Okay, well, that was quick. All right. Mr. Garside, I appreciate it too. We might get through all these questions. Mr. Garside, your management style.
Thank you. Like Maria, I have a collaborative management style, but I'm not adverse to making a decision when it's in the best interests of the town on my own. I do, however, recognize the value of consensus, which I said in my introductory video. I really value the input from residents. I value the input from the town council. It's great to get that. And I also like talking to the various department heads about how they see the challenge and what should be done about it. I think when you do that, if you try to do things on your own all the time, it's a bit tough. You're not going to get to where you want to go. It's much easier to get there when you bring everybody else along with you. Thank you.
And Ms. Brooks, I know you answered it a little bit in your introduction, but I apologize for asking you to repeat a bit. You're muted. No, is there anything you can do to help?
I tried unmuting her. I think she's having, oh, there she is. Okay, there we go. There we go.
It says muted by host, but I hope you're hearing me.
Yes, we do hear you. Go ahead.
lost the link entirely there. Not sure what happened. Anyways, yes, as I did say in my introductory video, I very much believe in a results-oriented management style. I believe in working with the council and the communities to set up strategic priorities and working with staff to implement action plans to achieve those priorities. I also believe in mentoring staff so that they, with leadership, take ownership for those action plans.
Okay, is that it? Very good.
Yeah, that we're good.
All right. Our second question is, Bay Harbor Islands allegedly has a shortage of parkland. Do you have any suggestions on how we might be able to improve that to get some more parkland? And we'll start with Mr. Garside.
Well, that's a tough problem. You're living on an island and it's only so big. But one thing you could do, and that I would look at doing, is look at some of the vacant land that's on the island now that hasn't been built on. Is it something that the town could acquire? Look at the land that the town currently owns. Could that be improved? And even a small park is better than no park. It's nice to have a place to just, lay down on the grass and enjoy the sun, or just sit on the park bench and enjoy the weather in Bay Island. But those are two ways that I think you could address the shortage of parks. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Ms. Brooks.
I agree with Mr. Garside. I think the opportunities with development and redevelopment to free up some additional space for parklands is an opportunity, in addition to potentially acquiring some of that vacant land. But I also think that there may be potential to joint use agreements with neighboring municipalities, particularly for recreation type programs.
Okay, Ms. Lasday.
I think there are opportunities to, as Ms. Brooks said, to work with other communities in the county, possibly for some recreational programming. At the same time, for actual parkland within the community, perhaps I would take an inventory of what land is currently owned by the community and see if there's a way to utilize some of the land better that's currently owned, to see if it can be made more parkland oriented, if it's asphalt or if there's parking or something there that could have a better use. Perhaps that would be, or another use, perhaps that would be a way to get more parkland. At the same time, if there is vacant land that's strategic for the community, perhaps it would be worth looking into purchasing the property.
Okay. I can tell I'm not going to need to time you all. Our next question is, as our newly appointed town manager, what experience do you have with emergency management of high-risk situations, unusual occurrences, and natural disasters such as hurricanes? And we'll start with Ms. Brooks.
I have quite a bit of experience with hurricanes. As I mentioned, Isaias the other day was my 6th hurricane. The other 5 of them I was actually working through, including Hurricane Andrew, where I was with the Miami-Dade County's solid waste department at the time, and responsible for all the FEMA coordination for the disposal of all the debris to do with Hurricane Andrew. So over 92 million in reimbursements. In addition, in the city of Miami Beach, while both manager and both interim city manager and assistant city manager, we went through hurricanes in both instances, and had to do both, all the preparation, the recovery, and then the cleanup for those as well, and the coordination with FEMA as well. Also, we went through, not hurricane related, we also went through the response to Zika a couple of years ago, which was quite an effort for our community, required significant coordination with health officials in the county to, for the monitoring of the mosquitoes, carrying the virus, for the tracking of individuals with the virus, to make sure that we got it under control, because we did have an outbreak here in Miami-Dade County at that time. I have, training in the incident command, various levels, to be able to respond and to be certified to be able to be part of the team as part of a FEMA response situation.
Perfect. Let's see, let's go to Ms. Lasday.
I have extensive experience with emergencies. I have 5 different levels of NIM certification in order to enable me to be part of the command center if there is an emergency that requires it. In Bannockburn, we've had to deal with major windstorms and major rains, tornado-like storms that have caused devastating damage. In my other first community, we had major fire of a huge apartment complex where all the residents had to be moved out in the middle of the night and we had to put them up in housing in the middle of the night and take care of them. Hundreds of people in this building had to be evacuated, bring in the Red Cross. With regards to hurricanes, I actually lived it when I had Hurricane Irma, took a direct hit of my home, caused a lot of damage. But my damage was pale in comparison to some of the people in our community who were completely flooded out and lost their homes. I did attend the FEMA meetings when Hurricane Irma hit, and they said to me, with all my certifications, I could be part of the logistics because I have all the certifications for that. I have not experienced more hurricanes, but I am very familiar with dealing with emergencies.
Okay. And Mr. Garside.
Yes, as town manager, we've had to respond to a number of weather-related and other crises here in Poland. We're a different part of the country than South Florida. Our crises are centered around windstorms, ice, and snow. Just recently, 2 weeks ago, we had the remnants of a tropical storm roll through, where we had to work with our local emergency management agency, FEMA, get our emergency management director spooled up to find emergency shelter for 300 campers who were in a camp that was not able to withstand the storm. We had an ice storm a few years ago that left the town without power for up to a week. And it was a pretty serious thing because it wasn't, it was in the fall and the weather was cold, so people didn't have heat, and we had to work through that, work very closely with FEMA. And then of course we have snowstorms and other things that require extensive work in the winter. So I've had a lot of work here. I've had the appropriate NIMS training to enable me to more effectively do my job. During my time in the Navy, I spent a lot of time in disaster relief when I was in Singapore. That was one of our jobs there. We provided the US Navy response to numerous disasters in Southeast Asia when typhoons would roll through, dealing with the logistics of getting life-saving supplies and other things like food, blankets, medical personnel to the area, working with host nation emergency management agencies, that sort of thing. Probably the most significant disaster relief work that we did was during the Japanese tsunami in 2011 when the Fukushima power plant was damaged. It was spewing radiation, and we had our ships working within the radiation cloud. We had to figure out how to work through that and still provide the disaster relief that people so desperately needed. So yes, I do have an extensive background in emergency management and disaster relief. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're going to go back to Ms. Lasday with the next question, and that is, describe the work environment or culture in which you have experienced the most success. How did you help contribute to that culture and success?
I'm sorry, what was the culture? And you didn't hear the word, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Let me try again. It says basically describe the work environment or culture which you have experienced greatest success.
Okay, the greatest success.
How
Okay.
did you help contribute to that culture or success?
The greatest success I had was in the village of Bannockburn. When I first got there, when I was just within the first month of being a manager in the village of Bannockburn, we had some major storms, and the whole community was completely flooded out. You couldn't drive anywhere. And the infrastructure system was so old, literally 50-year-old storm sewers and sanitary sewers. I mean, it's kind of disgusting, but there was actually toilet paper coming up on the streets. It was beyond disgusting. And my car, the water was probably 3 feet of water all over the place. And I made that my number one goal when I first got there. We got a lot of grants, met with the Illinois Environmental Protection Agency, actually also the US EPA, to know what some of the laws that were coming down, and searched for grants. And we were able to, within a very short period of time, say within 2 years possibly, we were able to resolve all of their flooding problems. So the next time we had a major round of storms, we actually didn't even qualify for FEMA funds for the first time ever. We didn't have $1,000 worth of damages. We ended up replacing a lot of the storm sewers, but the other thing we did, we added in a lot of sustainable projects. We did rain gardens throughout the entire community. We, when we had the Illinois Department of Transportation, when they did 2 major state roads, we had them implement a bunch of sustainable areas all along the main state routes on 2 different major routes. And it captured all the water. We no longer flood. I ended up becoming a speaker for ICMA as well as for other organizations to explain what we did, because we solved a really huge problem in the village.
Okay, I think I may have misled you on the question. I believe the question was like your organizational culture at work.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Environment, what work environment do you like to create as a town manager? Let's rephrase it.
What kind of work environment do I like as a manager?
Yeah, and how do you create it?
I make sure you have the right personnel. You understand what the job descriptions are. You understand what the needs of the community are. Make sure you have the right staff. When I first got to Bannockburn, I did not have the right staff for some of the goals that the council wanted. And we brought in some new personnel, and some of the personnel we actually sent into for extensive training to make sure that they can rise to the occasion to do some of the projects that were needed. And one of them was frankly getting all the grants and making sure that we did all the compliance, so that we, when we got audited by the US EPA, we were able to meet all the audit requirements. So I think that I had to build a team. I had a lot of retirements in Bannockburn. So one of the other things was I evaluated all the hiring standards, making sure that for each of the positions that we had the right qualifications listed for what we needed that person to be able to do. So we made sure we got the right personnel for the position that was available, to make sure whoever we hired was able to do the goals of the community and some of the goals that the city council was creating for staff.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garside, you comment on workplace culture and how you create it and such.
Yes, thank you, Colin. I find that I thrive, and so do people on the municipal team, when they all know what the goal is, how they can contribute to it, and so we're all moving in the same direction. The other thing I do is I treat everybody with dignity and respect and expect the same in return. That goes a long way when you're dealing with people. If everybody knows that they're going to get a fair shake, it's a much more pleasant place to work. I contribute to that by taking the time to set out the goals, to think about, you can't tell people where you want to go unless you know where you're going to go. You have to set those goals yourself. I also think having the right people in right positions is important, and you can take care of that over time by hiring people to replace those that leave that are good, and I think I'm starting to stumble, so I'm going to end my answer.
Fair enough. Ms. Brooks.
Yeah, a very probably similar answer. I do believe in an approach that of working collaboratively with staff, setting those goals, as I mentioned, through the strategic planning process, having each person responsible for their components of what we're trying to achieve in any given year, but also providing the mentoring and the teaching to help them grow into positions so that they can get those results. And I've gone into several different organizations within either Miami-Dade County or Miami Beach while I was there, and a big part of it also is putting the resources in place also to support them. So with that strategic planning process, realigning your budgets to support them and giving the staff the tools they need to succeed helps promote that culture. At the same time, there are times when you find that someone is just not quite the right fit in that culture, in that particular position. And sometimes it's a matter that, you need to realign where their fit is in the organization. And oftentimes that works. And sometimes it's a matter of having a conversation and they might find out that it's not the best fit for them. But at the end of the day, I think having those clear priorities and those clear goals and working with staff to help them achieve it, I think overall that provides a successful culture.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garside, building permitting for small projects and large in a community is often a controversial area of local government. Do you have any suggestions or experience on how you might streamline the process to get building permits out more quickly?
Yeah, I do, actually. We, here in Poland, well, first off, getting a building permit should not be controversial. You either meet the requirements to get the permit or you don't. It's pretty straightforward. You can streamline that process to get a permit in a couple of ways. One of the ways that we used here in Poland is we use technology to allow residents to obtain building permits online. And this is important because we have about maybe half our residents live out of state. They live somewhere else. They come here in the summer. So if they want to improve their home, we'd have people driving up on a Friday afternoon to try to get in our code enforcement office and get a building permit. Now they can do it from home. The code enforcement officer can process it. He can also use that same technology to go out in the field when he does the inspection, record the inspection, take a photo where it's appropriate, and move the process along a lot faster. It's also extremely transparent. You can go to our website and see the status of any building permit. Even the person that, even your neighbor, if he's putting in a new deck, did he get the right permit or not? Thank you.
Okay. Let's see, Ms. Brooks, you're next, I think, on this question.
Yeah, I agree. A lot of what Mr. Garside said, but maybe just taking it a little bit further, particularly when you're talking about commercial development, which is often a little bit more complex than just residential development. And but you can definitely have your permits, ability to apply online. You should be moving towards whereby plans can be submitted online and all the reviews and comments can be made online. So it's very easy for the applicant to see where those changes need to be made. And at the other end, particularly with the simpler permit types, the ability now, particularly even with COVID, even more important, to do inspections online. We have the technologies now with the mobile devices that for simple inspections, there's no real need for the inspector to have to go out to the actual site, and you can save that travel time going from site to site, and therefore have the ability to conduct more inspections per day per inspector than before, therefore get that turnaround quicker to those applicants. So going to like a virtual city hall, particularly for the building and permitting process, definitely should be a priority.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Lasday.
With building and permits, I think sometimes there's issues when people submit building permit plans that don't meet all the requirements and conditions that have been stated by, say, a zoning board, if there's conditions stated. So sometimes it can be challenging to make sure before those permit plans get processed that all the conditions have been met. And so assuming that all the conditions have been met and they meet all the requirements in order to get that building permit. And then I think there's a lot of technology out there. And I know in my current village, there is software out there where you can do things online and it makes the process a lot easier. There's also one of the things we do on our website is we make sure you have a really good Q&A where people know what the rules are before they even call you. So make sure your website's very current, your building codes are very current, that you have a lot of question and answers already out there for them so they can get those answers in the middle of the night if they're researching or whatever. And also all your forms, making sure it's easy for them to process. In terms of staff safety for the actual, I agree with Ms. Brooks with the inspection process. There is a lot you can do. I know my community, we have been doing a lot of videos of the properties, especially the smaller developments, where they can do the inspections remotely and trying to not expose the inspectors unless they really have to. So there are things you can do virtually that doesn't take as much time and it makes you much more efficient. But there are situations that you actually do need to see it in person, and it's kind of a case-by-case basis. But if you utilize technology and some of the virtual participation that you can do today, you can be much more efficient. But before you even get there, it's really important that all of the conditions have been met before that building permit is actually issued.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Brooks, the next question is, the residents of Bay Harbor Islands expect our town managers to be active and participating in our day-to-day events and activities. This might include, or special events probably, this might include pizza with the police, snow day. I bet you didn't know there was a snow day, Matt, in Bay Harbor. And the town picnic, and there's a lot of others. As the new town manager, are there, well, first of all, what role would you expect to play in these events? And then secondly, do you have any thoughts of things you've done in the past that might transfer over to Bay Harbor?
Well, a couple of things, and I definitely did not know there was a snow day in Bay Harbor. But I would expect to participate in those events, but I would, in most of those events, really defer the leadership of those events to the elected officials. It's, a lot of times it's their opportunity to get out and interact with the community, and I would not want to take away from that, although I would want to be there and be involved. I also very much believe in walking about the community. I used to do that in Miami Beach, but especially in Bay Harbor, where it's extremely walkable, and everything is pretty much in walking distance. I would want to be out there in the community every day, in addition, to those unique type events that you mentioned.
Okay, let's see. Next would be Ms. Lasday.
In Bannockburn, we have many, many special events, and I participate in almost all of them. Every single year we had a big Bannockburn Day that's a big barbecue for hundreds of residents that come out. We have a haunted trail for the kids for Halloween. We have a holiday carriage rides in the month of December. There's just multiple events, and all of them I try to participate in. I find I'm more behind the scenes in making sure everything gets done right, making sure that everyone's doing what they need to do. If there's any contracts that need to be entered into, to make sure that everything goes smoothly. At event, of course, it's the elected officials who take the lead there, but I will always be there, and I will also try to make sure everything gets executed and everybody has, and if whatever's needed on my part, I make sure, or staff's part, to make sure that we've done our part to make sure the event is a success and it goes smoothly. But I think it's critical that a manager is very much a part of the community and participates and gets to know the residents, and as Ms. Brooks stated, walk in the community and just see the residents and be accessible.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Garside.
Well, I really enjoyed participating in the community and having a close working and relationship with our municipal team. As a matter of fact, when Colin called me and told me that about the opportunity here, I was having lunch with our public works crew, and the topic of conversation was farm animals that were on the way to the slaughterhouse that somehow had escaped. And oddly enough, all those guys had a great story about that. But I absolutely love these events. We have a lot of them here in Poland, whether it's a farm stand, heritage days, cleanups, building a trail, whatever it might be. You'll find me there participating, flipping burgers, selling T-shirts, throwing softballs at the guy in the dunk tank, all of it. I love it all, and I think it's an important thing for the town manager to be part of all those things, but I really do enjoy them. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question. Let's see, I believe that goes to Ms. Brooks. And it is, what skills and strengths do you plan to bring to this position?
Okay, well, I think I have a wide variety of strengths, having performed in, as I said in my video, multiple roles over my career. I have an extremely strong financial background, extremely strong budgeting background, tied into strategic management. I did the first strategic management plans for Miami-Dade County, which was an extensive 2-year process working with numerous individuals and communities throughout the entire county, as well as business and community leaders, and then realigned the county's entire budget process to support that. And then I went and did the same thing in Miami Beach, and served well in reallocating resources when we had a growing tax base, but also served well in cutting resources when we went through the Great Recession. So I feel very comfortable in all aspects of financing, but also I have the ability, and I think I demonstrated it in Miami Beach when taking over as interim manager during a challenging transition process, to bring staff together and have them work towards goals, have to improve morale. I have a strong planning background. I'm AICP, American Institute of Certified Planners. Over the years, I have extensive experience in transportation planning, parking, which obviously is of import to Bay Harbor Islands. I have extensive experience heading up Miami Beach's services for community, for youth and elderly services for the entire time I was interim city manager, where we did many programs for elderly and for our youth. Very innovative programs that were recognized by the Children's Trust here in Miami-Dade County for youth. Extensive experience in education. I was part of the tight circle that negotiated with the school board for Miami Beach's education compact with the school board, that brought not only the International Baccalaureate program throughout all of the schools in Miami Beach, but also many of the schools in our feeder pattern outside of Miami Beach, but also numerous initiatives beyond the International Baccalaureate program, including health, including aftercare. So extensive experience in that area. I guess I would close with that. I mean, not only as interim manager that I oversaw, all aspects of the city, obviously, and it's a very dynamic city, Miami Beach, requiring a lot of involvement with the community. But as part of budgeting and overseeing the performance improvement and auditing functions for the city, I was able to delve down into numerous departments to do performance improvement and efficiency studies, including in the building department. I'm sorry.
I know we get
It's hard.
We've done so much. Okay. Let's see. Next would be Ms. Lasday to comment on that question.
I would find some of my greatest strengths are my ability to communicate with residents, with the council, and I'm very, very strong oral and written skills. I'm very proactive. I'm able to anticipate problems. I'm very good at solving problems. I'm very goal driven, so I try hard to figure out what needs to get done and to find ways to get it done. And the other thing is I'm very good in securing grants for any infrastructure projects. I have extensive experience working on different legislative committees. I've been very involved with one conference that does legislation for 45 communities, and I was the chair of another conference that does legislation for 54 communities. So I'm very good at anticipating what some of the problems are on the horizon and trying to find solutions to those problems. In addition to working with people and with the staff and mentoring and keeping morale and trying to keep your team together so you're all efficient and you're moving in the right direction, in the direction of the community wants you to be in. With regard to the budget, I'm very good with the budget. I mean, my community has done very well. We get the budget award each year, for the last 2 years, and we also get the CAFR award. So I'm very strong with the budgeting. I'm very strong with all the departments, but one of my best ability is to work with people, to develop staff, work with the city council, and work with the community and to communicate.
Okay, I think everybody's had a chance to answer that question. So our next question will be, do you have any recommendations on how to improve the parking on the East Island, where the business district is located? Any thoughts about how the city might deal with that issue? And I'm going to go with, let's see, how about Ms. Lasday?
Parking, with land being scarce, I think I would take a look at current land owned by the community to see if it's being utilized to its best use, and whether or not, if it's not, whether or not that would be an opportunity for parking. Another thing might be some partnerships with some of the property owners if there's vacant land. Sometimes you can do some public-private partnerships, or there's developments that perhaps you could also have some agreements being made where maybe some parking can be opened up and be made available. I'm not really sure without really looking at it further, other options. I know the land is very limited and there aren't a lot of places to park. So I think you just have to be most efficient with whatever land you do have that's vacant and see if there's an opportunity there.
Okay, Mr. Garside, any thoughts?
Yes. Well, we all know there's not a lot of land available, but the way I'd approach it is I'd talk to business owners and residents in the area. I'm sure they understand the issue very clearly. They probably have some very good ideas as to how to handle that. I'd also look at, what is there any land that the town owns that could be converted to parking? is the parking that we have there being used in the most efficient way. But I'd really have to get there and talk to folks and get eyes on the ground before I could offer some substantive comments. Thank you.
Okay, and Ms. Brooks?
Well, a couple of thoughts, and two different types of parking. The one is typically the parking that you need for your businesses, particularly on King Concourse. And for that, you want to look at what is really the efficient use of that. For example, you probably don't want the Front Street parking being used by, for 8-hour parking by employees, instead of being used by the customers that want to come in and park only for 2-3 hours, and you can get multiple turnover of customers throughout the day. So you probably want to shift those employees somewhere a little less convenient and restrict the amount of parking, the parking time within that business district to 2 or 3 hours, based on conversations with the business owners as to what they think that time should be. For the more multifamily area where there may be a need for more overnight parking, then you have an opportunity of working with business in the area that don't need that parking overnight, that their business is only during the day, and you have the opportunity to do agreements with them for use of that parking overnight.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, Mr. Garside, the next question will be, morale can sometimes be an issue in an organization. What will you do to improve morale in Bay Harbor Islands if you find it to be an issue?
Thanks, Colin. There are a couple of things that a good leader can do to help with morale. The first one is to conduct yourself in an appropriate manner. And by that, I mean, be cheerful. Not every day is a rainy day. If people see you smiling, see you keeping your head up through some tough times, they're going to take lead from your example and do that themselves. The other thing you do is find the things that people are doing right and make sure that you comment on that. Yeah, I'm sure that the Bay Harbor, well, I know Bay Harbor Islands does have some challenges, but there are a lot of things that people are doing right there. So tell them they're doing a good job. Thank them. I say thank you more than any other 2 words at work. And over time, if you do that, the other thing you can do is get obstacles out of the way that are preventing people from doing their job. Sometimes it can be very frustrating if you're trying to perform a task or do something, but there's some obstacle in the way that a person at that particular level can't solve. If you can find that obstacle, get it out of their way, people are happier, they can be productive, and morale improves. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Ms. Brooks.
I find that clear expectations for staff are very important to improving morale. My experience has been that most people, most employees want to do a good job, and they want to be able to succeed in their job. And by setting those clear expectations and giving them the support to achieve that, I find that goes a long way to improving morale. I think communication is important. They need to know what's happening day to day in the organization. And that needs to be communicated to them so they're not being surprised by things going on. So constant communication with staff, I think, is very important, and also with the elected officials, which is not part of this question. But I think communication is essential. And then just mutual respect, treating your employees with respect, I think helps a lot with morale.
Okay, and Ms. Lasday.
With my staff, I try to lead by example, and I also try to be very accessible and have an open door policy. I think that's really important because they're looking and they want to know, who their leader is and how is that person conducting themselves. I think that's really important. But the other thing is to also listen. I hold a lot of staff meetings with all the department heads. I hold meetings with the entire police department, at least semi-annually, where I bring the whole department in and we have lunch together and we do training and we talk through things and some issues. I let them know what the expectations are of the community and the village and the council, to make sure everybody understands what the goals are and hear what their concerns, and then try to make sure everybody's on the same page and we're all trying to meet those expectations. I think that also saying please and thank you and showing respect and kindness is also important, but at the same time, also letting everybody know what the expectations are and holding people accountable. I think that's very important. But I also think at a board meeting or a council meeting, if a staff member's done something great, acknowledge that person, give credit where credit's due. And I think that goes a long way for a staff member who does a great job, letting people know that person did a great job and let that person be recognized. I think it's very important to recognize people's good work, at the same time acknowledge when there's improvement needed.
Okay. I almost feel it's a little unfair to ask you the next question, but it's kind of the way it works in my semester. Tell us about your experience with succession planning, how you make sure that there's somebody behind you to take up the role, or when a department head leaves, someone.
Colin, I'm sorry, you were breaking up a little bit there. I heard you saying, and I'm assuming, because I didn't hear you say for me, but I'm assuming it was for me.
Actually, I was going to give it to Miss Lasday.
Wait. Okay, that's fine. I just couldn't hear. Maybe Maria heard that.
So, Colin, thank you. So your question was regarding succession planning?
Yes.
I have extensive experience with succession planning. I've had to replace 80% of my staff in my 13 years in Bannockburn because of retirements. It's one of the things we spent a lot of time is making sure we had all the positions and making sure we had all the hiring standards being what we wanted them to be, see if there needed to be adjustments. We also made sure that people were being mentored and being developed. So when positions opened up, they would be ready to move up. If there wasn't someone available to move up, for instance, in the last round, when we had a new the first time I had to do a police chief, we had succession planning in place. The lieutenant was able to move up, no problem, he was ready to go. But the second time the police chief position opened up due to another retirement, which were just a year and a half ago, we didn't have anybody in place because of all the other retirements that took place. I had a lieutenant and 2 other sergeants who also retired all within the same time period. So we brought in some part-timers and we saw how people did. And then one of the things in Bannockburn, we do have a part-time list, so we're able to hire people, screen them, see how they do, and then a position opens up, we let them apply for the position, but at least we're a little bit more familiar with who we're hiring. Sometimes you don't have a big group to choose from, so you go out to search, but I was very involved with preparing the job descriptions and creating the ads to make sure that whoever we hire does meet the goals of the community and can follow through on those goals. It's very important that you have the right hire. I also had to do the same thing with finance when our finance director left, and a different admin and the zoning person. So I'm very, very experienced with succession planning, especially mainly due to retirements, which we've had many employees over the years retire. So I'm very, very familiar with it, and I know how to get it done, either internally or if I have to bring someone in and place ads and screen people and interview them and put them through testing and reference checks.
Okay, Mr. Garside.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. We look pretty hard at succession planning here, and it's something I've, excuse me, had a lot of experience with throughout my career. Pardon me. Here in Poland, we've got really 2 different ways we look at it. One, there are positions where there's a natural person that could fill in behind you. 2 good examples are our town clerk. We have an assistant town clerk as well, who's really the town clerk in training. And that's a multi-year project. And so when this town clerk retires, this lady can move into that position, and that'll work out great. Another is mine. I have a deputy town manager that I spend a lot of time with and that I've trained to fulfill my role, and would be able to move up, provided the select board approves that move. The other type of position is you might have a supervisor where there aren't people that are a logical replacement for, and or maybe they're just not don't have the aptitude to do it, and that's where you have to go out and conduct a search. But when we conduct a search here, we're up in Maine. It's a semi-rural area. You kind of have a pool of candidates that you know in the area that you can go to, so it's not a huge unknown, and so you have some degree of certainty, not pure certainty, but you have some idea of how you're going to do that for those two things. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Ms. Brooks, I think you're up.
Okay. So for success in planning, I believe in being directly involved in hiring not just those people who report to the manager, but also a level or two below that, because those people will eventually be your potential candidates for your department directors, police chief, etc. I believe in providing training so they grow, and mentoring for those people at the lower levels as well. So oftentimes when I would have weekly meetings with directors, I would also have them bring in their next, not necessarily in line, but the person that's most involved and most possibly having the chance to succeed. That being said, I also believe that sometimes it's important to bring in new individuals from the outside. As much as you always want to have potential people in place who could step up into that position, you also want to keep in mind bringing in new people every once in a while to bring in new ideas to the organization.
Okay. I think everybody's had a chance at that one. Let's see, so the next question goes to Mr. Did I ask you the first? Were you first on the last question?
Gosh, Colin, I can't remember.
I think you were. So, Ms. Brooks, this one will be for you. And it is, as our newly hired town manager, please share what your first 90 days as town manager will be. What will you do? What do you want to accomplish?
Well, first and foremost, I would want to hire the new police chief. I think public safety and community policing is very, very, very important to the community of Bay Harbor Islands. And that position has been vacant for some time now, has, undergone a couple or so interim police chiefs, and that stability is needed as quickly as possible. I would want to I know that there's been a recruitment that has been ongoing, but I would be concerned that it's a bit stale because it was started under the previous town manager. So I would want to, renew that search, and I would want to get, I think, the residents a little bit more involved in that process than I think they have been in the past. So that would be my number one priority coming in. By the time the town manager gets there, the budget for the next fiscal year is going to be essentially complete. The budget, first budget hearing is on September 8th, which is just around the corner. So that's going to be pretty well set, but I would still want to get a more in-depth understanding of the town's finances. And then I would want to get to know each of the direct reports to me, so that, I could begin to really evaluate staff on hand and get a more thorough understanding of their responsibilities, their approaches, etc. And finally, I would like to start a strategic planning process for the town, so that, as I mentioned in my video, we could have the council, the community and town staff all working towards the same priorities.
Hey, thank you. Ms. Lasday.
During the first 90 days, similar to Ms. Brooks' comments, I think it's critical that the police chief get hired and go through that process and evaluate it from the beginning, because the process has stalled. I also think it's important to read the union contract to see. I understand that's expiring in October, so I'd want to take a look at that as well right off the bat. I'd also would like to evaluate the budget. I understand the goal is to maintain the millage rate or lower it ideally, but to see, because of COVID, the revenues are different and expectations are different right now, and a lot of programs aren't being implemented right now. So I'd want us to see, one, what the budget is, what the expectation is of the community and the council, but also see, is everybody operating efficiently? When you have staff working remotely, in some ways the job descriptions are changing. So I'd want to evaluate examine all of the current staff and their current roles, and to see how it relates to the budget, and making sure that everybody is operating efficiently in these COVID days right now, where everything is a little bit different. The other thing I think is really important, given the fact that we're in September and August, is hurricane season. Hurricane season is still November. I just want to make sure that I'm very familiar with those emergency management plans, even before I even start, probably, to make sure that I know what would happen if the hurricane hits, and making sure I understand what the storm sewers are, and make sure I understand how flooding, if there's any preventative measures that can be done before storm hits. To me, that's going to be critical, because you can't control, the weather, obviously. And the other thing would be to really get to know, if I can, start to get to know agencies and the community, the residents, and the council. Just try to establish relationships. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, let's see, Mr. Garside.
Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, thanks, Colin. The first 90 days on the ground, I'd be doing a couple of things. The first thing I'd be looking at is establishing and building relationships with folks. I'd start off with internal relationships, direct reports, other staff, of course, building a professional relationship with the town council, and just as importantly, getting to know some of the residents, particularly those that serve on our various boards and committees, so I can understand, what they're doing, how I can support them. The other thing I'd be doing is talking to our finance director. I'd want to understand where we are in with our budget that we're executing, and the one that is will either be complete or almost complete by the time I would get there. But understand, hey, are we okay with revenues? Where are we with expenses? Do we need to make any adjustments? I think Maria made a very good point about budgetary issues as it relates to COVID. Here in Poland, we took a very hard look at that. We would reduced our expected revenues and reduced our expenses dramatically to account for some potential financial challenges over the coming year. So I'd want to take a look at that. And just as importantly, I'd want to take a look at the staff, what people are doing, how they're doing it. I like to ask questions, not to challenge anybody's professional competency, but really because I just want to know what they're doing. I'd look very hard at the hiring situation for the new police chief. I know that's a big issue, but before I made any big moves, I'd want to get on the ground and understand a little bit more about that before I did anything, but I would move fairly swiftly on that. Thank you.
Okay. Next question, Mr. Garside. What is your vision for Bay Harbor Islands? Say 10 or 20 years out. What do you think it looks like? What would you want it to look like?
Well, for me, that's a great question, because there's a lot of different facets to that. For me, I wanted to continue to be a place that people enjoyed living, that provided great municipal services, that had the kind of businesses that make people want to stay in the community, restaurants and things like that. But just as important, what you want the town to look like in 20 years is getting people's input as to what they would like it to look like in 20 years. And I know Kathy talked about a strategic plan. That's another great method to get citizen input and then start shaping that vision so that you can create, execute it, and make that a reality. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Ms. Brooks, you're up.
I think Mr. Garside hit a lot of really great points. I think in that time frame, you'd want Bay Harbor Islands to continue to have that small town feel that it has today, and it's a wonderful small community, with very walkable, a nice main street. But I think as importantly, as was mentioned, that you would want the community input on what they want their community to look like in that time frame.
Okay, Ms. Lasday.
I wholeheartedly agree with Mr. Garside and Ms. Brooks. I mean, the strategic planning is critical to make sure we know what the community wants and what their dreams and goals are for the community. But at the same time, one of the things that's so beautiful about it is you want to maintain that sense of community, have those community events, bring people together, keep it that small town feeling that distinguishes you from all the other communities. Have it be a place where you want to live there, send your kids to school there, and just be there long term. And have it be that special place that's different, a little oasis amongst all these other communities that are not that small knit community knit feeling. It's very unique, and I would hope we can just maintain that distinguishes it from all the other communities.
Okay. Let's see, Ms. Brooks. A manager is faced with a lot of decisions, some of which are, that the council makes, of course, but there's some that the manager makes. Can you describe your decision-making process?
I'm very analytical. I like a lot of facts and data when I'm making my decisions. I will get input from staff. I will, listen to their expertise. But then ultimately, putting those two together, the facts that I have in front of me, the input from staff, it's then the manager's decision to make. And that would be my process.
Okay. Ms. Lasday.
When making decisions, I think it is important to assess what the facts are and to get the input from staff and get their assessment of the situation and what some of the options they think should be entertained. But I also think it's important to understand what the long-term implications are of some of the decisions. So when you do make that decision, you're thinking in the present, but also in the future, 2-3 steps ahead, what's going to happen if we make that decision. So I'm very methodical and try to be very proactive when I make decisions I'm looking at that decision both in the short term, but also in the long term, making sure it's the right decision.
Okay, and Mr. Garside.
Thanks, Colin. I, similar to both Maria and Kathy, I'll use data where we can get good data. I find that getting input both from staff is important. Where we can reach a decision based on consensus, that's great because everybody has buy-in, but there are other times that you need to just make that decision on your own. But wherever you arrive at a decision, whether it's a decision by consensus or that's something that I make on my own, it's got to be consistent with the long-term goals that you've established for the town and the municipal staff. Thanks.
Okay. Let's see, to Ms. Lasday. You've heard the phrase, the buck stops here, or the buck stops with you. What is your willingness to take responsibility for your successes and or possible failures?
I do agree the buck stops with me. If things don't go right, the buck stops with me. I am responsible for staff and for the execution of the policies. And if they don't go well, I do assume that responsibility. I think it's very important. And I think that if everything goes well and the departments are doing fantastic, I think that the staff deserves the accolades and the recognition. I think it's very important that staff gets recognized for when they do things right, but ultimately it's my decision if things go wrong and I agree to a certain path, it's ultimately my responsibility to assume that responsibility and acknowledge that the decision was wrong.
Okay, Mr. Garside.
Thank you. Yes, I've been in responsible positions and been held accountable my entire professional life. I believe success should be shared, but when things don't go well, if you're the leader, you're in charge, you should be the one owning up to it. Thanks.
Okay, and Ms. Brooks.
I think it's pretty much well said. Yeah, the buck stops with the manager and they're responsible. Giving recognition to staff when they do a great thing or they do a good thing and they accomplish the objective set out for them. I believe in mentoring them where possible when they make mistakes, but then taking the responsibility for it and not putting that on staff.
Okay. Next up would be Mr. Garside, I believe. How do you plan to demonstrate transparency with our community employees and town council?
Okay, thanks, Colin. That's a great question because transparency is very important. Gives people confidence that their municipal government is doing what they want it to do and acting appropriately. I do that here in Poland by communicating to our select board. We have a select board vice a town council regularly at our twice monthly meetings. I tell them exactly what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and what the expected outcome is. There's sometimes I need to get their buy-in. Other times I'm telling them of a project that I'm doing, and so that they can have some situational awareness and understand. The other thing that I do is we spend a lot of effort to put various reports, particularly financial reports, on our website, so that if anybody wants to look at it, they can go in there, see what we're doing, see what we're up to. At twice a month at a select board meeting, I go through the expense list, and anything that's a little high or unusual, I will comment on, so that folks can understand that A, what we're doing, but B, that I've got my eye on the ball here, and I'm watching how things are going. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Brooks.
Two aspects, that come to mind. Transparency is important. I believe in having a results-oriented approach helps achieve that transparency. When you set out those action plans and say, this is what your goal is to achieve for the year to further the priorities of the community and the council, then you have to come back throughout the year and at the end of the year and say, here's how we did. And I think that goes a long way towards achieving the transparency. In addition to that, just overall communications to the council, when there are issues occurring in the town that they may or may not be aware of, communication to the community so that they're aware as well.
Okay, and Ms. Lasday.
I think with transparency, it's critically important in order to have the confidence of the community by putting the agendas and all the agenda items. I think that's very important as a basic to make sure the community knows what's being discussed. I think it's also important if there's a big project to put to have meetings so people can have their feedback before that process gets too far into the process with zoning boards or the council, but have some open discussion and make sure you that you know what the goals of the community are. And if there is a project that's being contemplated, put all the information on the website, let the residents see it, take their feedback, have them express their feedback and make sure it's acknowledged and discussed. Because I think it's really important that you do things that are what the community wants you to do. I think it's also really important before you do the budget process to have that strategic planning process where you discuss the goals of the community and then you put it. And one of the things I would love to do if I were managers, go after the GFOA award, which is the highest budget award. So you incorporate that strategic plan in the budget and you put in performance metrics and then you show accountability. And you're held accountable to that budget and where you are and whether or not you met the goals of the community. So those are some of the things that I would want to do for transparency purposes.
Okay. I'm going to read this question and we're going to direct it to Ms. Brooks first. Do you have any recommendations on how to improve our transfer of development rights program and add transparency to it so that town residents know how the money's collected and how it's spent?
Well, I think that information should be readily available online. Where it came from, which properties it came from and where it's being transferred to. That being said, I would like to be able to get a little bit more understanding of your TDR ordinance, before commenting on how it should be improved.
Okay. Let's see, Ms. Lasday.
I would need to evaluate the program to give you a better answer on it. I think you'd want to make sure it's in the budget and where the line item is and what the expected, how you're going to spend it and where it's being allocated. I think that's important. And maybe you can even put it on the website, have a section on the website that, that highlights that. If there's a finance page, that could be something that could be updated and included there so people know what's been brought in. But I would want to look at the ordinance and see what some of the parameters are. And so I'm sorry, I can't answer that a little bit better.
And Mr. Garside.
Yeah, thanks, Colin. I would want to do the research to know what I'm talking about before I gave a more complete answer. And that would involve looking at the ordinance, understanding its implications. And as far as the transparency bit goes, I think all of it should be available on the website so people can see what's going on with those funds. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. I think the next question goes to Ms. Lasday as the first person to respond. And I'd like to pose a hypothetical. Let's say the city council, a town council, makes a decision 4-3 at one of their meetings, and the next day a group of 5 residents comes in and to your office and wants you to do something other than the majority decided to do. How do you handle that situation?
I would listen to their concerns, but I would also let my council know that they came in and they expressed their concerns and asked them if they would like it to be on the agenda to reevaluate their decision, or if the majorities or whether or not that decision should hold. But I think it's important to hear what the residents have to say, but I also think it's important to let the council know they came in and let them know what they said and how they felt about their decision, to give the council an opportunity to decide whether or not to reevaluate it.
Okay, Mr. Garside.
The council's made a decision. It's my job to execute. If folks come in and want me to do something contrary to that, I need to tell them what the council decided and what the impact of that is. I'd also offer them that, hey, they do have redress, that they could go to the council and recommend a different course of action. But, if the council makes a decision, I've got to execute. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Brooks?
I would listen to what they have to say. I would want to see if there's any new information that they're bringing to light that either I or the council may not have considered. But if there's none, yes, the council has made a decision and I would execute it. I would give the council a heads up, that this is going on. And if there is new information, in that event, I might discuss with each council member and see if it's something that would have changed their perspective. But barring that, I would execute.
Okay. Let me see. I think it's Mr. Garside's question now. Let's say the council is divided 3 to 3. There's 3 members that are very strong proponents on one side of an issue and 3 members that are very strong proponents on the other side of the issue. And there's 1 council member, well, let's just say the seat's vacant for some reason. How do you work to resolve that situation?
Well, what I do in those situations, and I've had those occur here in Poland, is first thing that folks need to realize is, as town manager, you don't get a vote. My job is to present the facts to the council and give them enough information to make an informed and reasonable decision. When you get into a situation where you might be tied, typically, what I found here at any rate, either people have very strong feelings, they might not be swayed, or they just don't have enough information. And so I'd work to fill that void. Then we look at doing, if a seat is vacant, we'd look, how can we fill that seat? Because you can't continue business if you can't make get a majority. Thank you.
Okay. Ms. Brooks, you're up.
Well, that's an unfortunate situation to be in, and you definitely, as Mr. Gardai said, you want to get that seat filled as quickly as possible. But nonetheless, if it's a tie, that is in effect a no vote. If you have not presented the facts to the council that gives them the information that they need so that a majority of the council, approves that particular issue, then it is in effect a no vote, and you have to go with that.
Okay, and Ms. Lasday.
I agree that if you don't have consensus, it is a no vote. But at the same time, I want to see if there's a way to provide more information, see if there's a need for more information in order for people to reach consensus. But if without a majority vote, the manager can't execute the policy. We would need a majority vote. So I guess for one, I think one would be important to fill the seat, but 2, it would be important to maybe see if you can educate them with more information so they can reach consensus.
Okay. And Ms. Brooks, the next question is for you. How do you handle a situation where your professional opinion tells you that the council is making a decision that is unwise?
The council, in my professional opinion, the council making a decision that's unwise. It's similar to the prior question. You want them to have as much information as you can. I would individually brief the council members and give them my position, but they represent the community. They are the ones elected by the community. I don't think you can say their position is unwise. They're the elected officials for that community. They are making it with the best information that they have. And short of them giving you any information that they don't have, their position is the correct position.
Okay, let's see. Ms. Lasday, your comments?
As a manager, it's very important that we supply our council with the absolute best information, all of the facts, the pros, the cons, an assessment of the situation, so that they can make an educated decision. So whatever decision they make, at least it's an educated decision, and they feel they're meeting the goals of their communities. They represent the community. So I agree with Ms. Brooks that it's not that it's an unwise decision. It's just it's a decision that should be an educated decision based upon information that we supply them, the facts, the pros, the cons, and so they can make well thought out decisions. That's our job, to make sure they have that information.
Okay, and Mr. Garside, I think you're the last one to get a chance at this question.
Yes, thank you. As part of the decision-making process, I will have obviously provided the council with as much information as I can gather on the issue. But just as important as the information and data that they're presented with, as a manager and as a leader, you want to tell folks what's the impact of a decision that you're going to make. You want to let them know this is the impact, either it's financial, it could be policy-wise, it could, whatever it might be, but walk them through that process. And that, again, is to help them make a reasoned and informed decision. But in the end, you know, folks are good people. They'll make the decision that they feel is consistent with the best interests of the town. Thank you.
Okay. Tell me, let's see, who's next? Let's see, I guess we're up to Ms. Lasday again. Tell me how you prepared for this interview and what you know about Bay Harbor Island.
How did I prepare for tonight's webinar interview? I watched the budget meeting driving here from Venus Springs. Watch as many of the meetings that I can to really understand the community. Try to watch a lot of the city council meeting or the town council meetings. Getting here earlier today to walk around the community to get a feel for the community. I was fortunate to be able to drive around the community with one of the council members, and just asking a lot of questions, doing a lot of as much search as I can on the internet. We see what, anything I can find out about the community. And I think the thing that's helped me the most, though, is just trying to watch as many of the meetings as possible, all the different community meetings that there have in the last 6 months, or actually the last year. I've read a lot of the newsletters, looking at the charter, and just really looking at the website, all the different elements in the website, and any information I can gather to try to understand the community.
Okay, Mr. Garside.
I watched council meetings, budget meetings, did some Google searches about news articles, read the town newsletter, and I read through some of the documents on the website, like the charter, which is very important. Thank you.
And Ms. Brooks.
Similarly, I've watched commission meetings and budget meetings, looked through the budget online, looked through pension valuation reports, walked the community, talked to people I knew in the community. I've lived 15 minutes away for 30 or so years, but it's still not the same as actually living there. So, it's still a lot to learn to make sure you know as much as possible of the community. So while I've done a lot already, I think I would still have a lot to do as manager.
Okay. Let's see, Mr. Garside. Are you familiar with the town's comprehensive plan?
A little bit. I know what comprehensive plan is. As a matter of fact, I'm leading the effort to update the comprehensive plan here in Poland right now.
Okay, and do you know anything about Bay Harbor's comprehensive plan? Did you have a chance to look at that at all?
I haven't had a chance to read the entire document yet, no.
Okay, Ms. Brooks.
I am very familiar with comprehensive plans under Florida law, but I have not read Bay Harbor Island's comprehensive plan.
And Ms. Lasday.
I actually was searching the internet on the website extensively, looking for the comprehensive plan. There's two different sections on the code that references it within the code section. So I actually did read those sections. And then I spent a lot of time reading the charter, trying to really understand the community. And there was also some documents that were filed with the state that I was trying to read as well. I was really trying hard to understand what the goals of the community were. So that's why I did try hard to figure out what the comprehensive plan was and the charter and what some of the regulations were that kind of influenced the direction of the community.
Okay, thank you. I think we're going to start to wrap it up now. We're getting close enough to 9 o'clock. If each of you would like to have, say, 3 or 4 minutes to make a closing statement, you don't have to use that amount of time, but that amount of time is available to you. Let's see, I think Ms. Brooks, you're up.
Okay. Didn't think I was going to have as much as 4 minutes, but that's okay. I probably will be brief. I think you've heard a lot of similarities tonight among candidates, the applicants. But I think there are also a couple of unique aspects. And one of the areas that I think that is unique to my application is my extensive experience with local government in Florida, and particularly in South Florida, so that I can hit the ground running. I know the particulars of Florida law on budgets, which is very unique and very, very specific. I'm familiar with Florida's comprehensive planning process as just as 2 examples. I'm also familiar with the resiliency work being done by the coastal communities in South Florida. And while Bay Harbor Islands is in a much better position than, say, Miami Beach, portions of Miami Shores, portions of Miami, it's still from a perception point of view, has to be on top of resiliency planning. And I think I can bring some, the local knowledge in that respect. As I mentioned, throughout this, I have a very strong financial background. I have a strong background of success throughout my career locally. But beyond that, I'm highly regarded for my ethics and my integrity. I work very well with individuals, and I take the time to listen. So I hope that you will consider me for the position of town manager for Bay Harbor Islands. And I thank you so much for this opportunity to respond to these questions and hopefully give the community some perspective of where we are. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Lasday.
I'm so honored to be part of this process, and I just want to thank you very much for listening to me and reading all the multiple information that's been submitted. I bring a lot of experience to the position as an attorney, as a manager, an extensive background for 15 years with different communities. I've handled all the different departments. I've worked with staff in various levels. I had a lot of staffing changes. I've handled emergency management situations. I understand how organizations work, and I understand how to build teams. I know how to maintain teams. I understand how to work with councils and with a community, and to embrace the community and to be part of it. And that's what I would look forward to being the manager at Bay Harbor Islands, to be part of the community and to really get to know everybody and try to always lead a leader, to be a leader that has integrity and high strong of ethics, and lead by example the staff, and to make sure I mentor them and develop them so they're able to execute goals as well. I know I'm not a Florida manager, but I understand some of the experiences in Florida, but I'm a very quick learner. When I went from an attorney to a manager overnight, I had to learn very quickly, and I'm very, very good at doing that. very confident that I can understand Florida law very quickly. I understand budget process, GFOA standards everybody has in the entire country for the budget. That's the Government Finance Association standards. A lot of the adjacent communities, their budgets are the GFOA budgets, and they do get the budget award. That's a set national standard, and I would want to do that for Bay Harbor Islands. When it comes to emergency management, it's important that I understand what the processes are in order to be successful. But I do have my FEMA training, the NIM certification and training, so I'm very confident that I can handle whatever the new issues are that I haven't encountered in Illinois. I'm confident that I can be successful here in Bay Harbor Islands. So thank you very much for even for considering me as a candidate.
Thank you. And Mr. Garside, if you could wrap us up.
Thank you. First, thanks so much for setting this up. It's a great opportunity to talk to the residents of Bay Harbor Islands and let them know a little bit more about me and why I think I would be a good fit as the next town manager. As I said in my introductory video, I've got the integrity, the skill set you're looking for. I'm approachable. I'm able to work through crises. And most importantly, I really want the job and to be part of this wonderful community. I hope to see you soon as your next town manager. Thank you.
Okay, well, that was a little quicker than I thought it would be, but that's okay. I'm tired. I would like to thank everyone for attending, most particularly tonight, most particularly our candidates, the public. I see there's 20 participants on. My understanding is that this session has been recorded. Of course, it's being live streamed on the website, so there may well be other people who are watching it. And if anyone would like to see it tomorrow or the next day, it should be available on the town's website. Alba, if I'm wrong, please correct me.
No, you're correct.
Very good, thank you. So thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Good luck to our candidates tomorrow, and be safe.
Good night, everyone.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night. Thank you, Alba, as well.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alba.
Thank
Have
you.
a good evening.